Texas Congressman Ron Paul's out of his mind. He wants to deploy all U.S. troops who are currently overseas fighting the war on terror and bring them back home. He calls it non-interventionism. We call it unpatriotic. You know what other group wanted the troops out of Afghanistan? Al-Qaeda. Ron Paul, unpatriotic, and possibly a terrorist. Rick Santorum is a supporter of America's war on terror, a true patriot. If he was president, Muslim fundamentalists would be so scared and Americanized they'd be Harlem shaking in their turbans. Rick Santorum, he's hip on terror for 2012. This message was paid for by Rick Santorum for president. Ron Paul wants the government to stop regulating drugs and leave it up to the states to decide. He'd like to release all non-violent drug users out of prisons. He says heroin addicts are sick people, not criminals. You know who else didn't consider himself a criminal? Tyrone Bigham. Is this just an excuse for Congressman Paul to smoke a joint with Tyrone Bigham? For some reason, Ron Paul thinks your personal choices matter, and he might be a crackhead. Newt Gingrich supports America's war on drugs. He believes the U.S. should be as aggressive on drugs as Singapore. Yes, Singapore. The same place where people are hung for possessing a few grams of heroin. Newt Gingrich doesn't even like black people, so you won't have to worry about that whole Tyrone Bigham thing. Newt Gingrich, a name you can trust. This message was paid for by Newt Gingrich for president. Congressman Ron Paul just doesn't get it. He thinks we should shut down Guantanamo Bay. He also doesn't believe in waterboarding. It's torture, he says. It's illegal under international law, and it's also immoral. Doesn't Ron Paul realize that torturing those who we fear and hate at detention centers is simply the American way? Ron Paul, a villain at heart. Is he fucking crazy or what? Mitt Romney doesn't consider waterboarding to be torture. He's also in support of Guantanamo Bay. Quote, "We should double Guantanamo," end quote. Now remember, Gitmo isn't just limited to foreigners. They also have American detainees. Mitt Romney, don't you just want to hug him? This message was paid for by Mitt Romney for president.
You know, building this case out, please. They're building up this case just like we did in Iraq. Build up the war propaganda. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and they had nuclear weapons, and we had to go in. I'm sure you supported that war as well. Okay. It's time we quit this. It's time. It's trillions of dollars we're spending on these wars.
When we come back, we'll try to get a hold of things.